Good morning. Good morning, trustees, presidents, administrators, and students, and welcome back to the 2023 National Legislative Summit. I'm Nick Newpower. I'm the very proud president of Butler County Community College in Western Pennsylvania, and it is my honor to introduce Congressman Lloyd Smucker, who proudly represents Pennsylvania's 11th Congressional District. In this new Congress, Congressman Smucker has been appointed once again to the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. He previously served as a ranking member of the Higher Education and Workforce Investments Subcommittee in the 116th Congress. His passion for education policy stems from his non-traditional educational journey. The congressman took evening courses while running his small construction company during the day, so he knows firsthand the demands that face our many students. Congressman Smucker is dedicated to helping more students enter the workforce with the skills they need to compete and acquire good-paying, in-demand jobs. Pennsylvania's 11th, and I might add the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, can rest assured that it has a representative that will work to improve college affordability, expand apprenticeships, and strengthen career and technical education. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Smucker to the stage.
Well, thank you, Nick, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Washington, D.C. And thanks for getting up early to come out. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Really appreciate the work that each of you do every day to help to ensure that your students have their opportunity to live their own American dream. You come to Washington, D.C. at an interesting time, a challenging time. You all have had a lot of challenge in your sector just coming through the pandemic, but the country as well has experienced a lot coming through the pandemic. And then we hear news of China sending a balloon across the United States, and we worry about the rise of China and what that will do for the future of the country. You hear a lot of talk about the debt limit and how that will be dealt with. I serve on the Education Committee, but also Ways and Means and Budget Committee, and I worry about the long-term trajectory in the country, where we are projecting what I think are unsustainable levels of debt that will impact our futures. And one of the messages I want to have for you today is that the work that you are doing is at the heart of solving those problems that we're faced with. That work, and we'll talk just a little bit about that afterwards, or at the end of the talk. But for me, and Nick mentioned a little bit of this, education was foundational to my life and everything that I've had the opportunity to be part of while I was here. I'm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Many of you know that's the home of the Amish. How many of you all been to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania? All right, a lot of you. People normally often know. But I was born Old Order Amish. So, that's Old Order. You may not know what that is, but that's the horse and buggy and no electricity and all. I was number 10 of 12 kids, and I was the first in my family to attend high school. Amish education generally ends in 8th or 9th grade. It's an agricultural background and heritage, and they want folks to be working on the farm. So again, number 10 of 12, first to attend high school. My parents didn't like the idea and required me to go to a private, a Christian Mennonite school, and that came with tuition. And so I was responsible to pay for my own tuition if it's something that I wanted to do, which led to my first career. I hung drywall at night to be able to attend high school during the day. And then after graduation, at 17 years old, an older brother who I was working for asked if I want to buy a business. I'm like, yeah, sure. And so for $1,000, which I paid him over a period of time, I found myself a business owner. And then attended college at night. So Nick mentioned I was a non-traditional college student. And I was one of those individuals who was earning while I was learning, who was applying what I was learning at college every single day, because I had no idea how to run a business. But I learned at night while I was doing that during the day. And I did that for 10 years, even while I began to raise a family and all. And my entire life has been one of learning as I went along. And that's why I think your sector, the work that community colleges do, is so important, and particularly where we are right now, where students have begun to question, parents at times have begun to question the value of an education, of a college education, of a four-year degree. They want to see the benefit of that. They want to see an immediate benefit of that in connecting them with a job and ensuring that they have the career that they choose. And so I think there are a lot of, Pennsylvania, by the way, is blessed with a very diverse mix of colleges and universities that do a great job of preparing students for their lives. But the community college is a really, really critical part of that. And so I, again, appreciate so much the work that you're doing every day. I also served in the Pennsylvania State Senate. By the way, I operated a construction company for about 25 years. We grew that company to a regional leader in the type of construction, commercial contracting that we were doing. Still operating in Pennsylvania and Delaware. It's a sort of a regional, as I said, a regional leader in that type of construction, operated by a brother of mine now with like 300 employees or something like that. But it's, that story is what we call the American dream, the idea that you can start wherever you happen to be in life, and you can, if you work hard in our system, if you work hard, you make some good decisions, you play by the rules, you can live your own American dream. But as I said, today, students expect more from their education, and I think what I've seen in the construction world, biggest problem we always had was labor, finding people to fill the spots that we had available. In fact, it was our biggest impediment to growth. And today, most companies, it's maybe tapered off a little as we've seen the economy soften, but most companies, that's their number one issue. And we need to do a better job of connecting our education system with our business community and with the jobs that are available. And this is to the heart of what community colleges are able to do. Certainly, in Lancaster County, we're part of the Harrisburg Area Community College HAC, and I've interacted with Dr. Ski, who's the president there, many times, and interacted with some of you as well. But have seen, many of you now have, as HAC does, a focus on healthcare, nursing. Many of the nurses in the Commonwealth are coming out of the community college system. But every industry should be looking to community colleges to ensure that you have programs, certificate programs or whatever it may be, that helps them find people and prepares them for jobs there. We should work to develop a post-secondary education system that offers many paths to success, and that often does not include today a traditional four-year degree, although none of us would ever discourage that, because for many students that still works. But I think what we're seeing, and again, what we're seeing in community colleges, is that employers, and I would say even here at the federal government, we're moving to skills-based education and skills-based hiring programs And we can continue to facilitate that transition through various reforms. One of the things that has been mentioned to me already several times this morning, just having walked in, is the Pell Grants and the effectiveness of the Pell Grants. And we've been working as Republicans in the House to ensure that they can be expanded to be able to be used for some of those short-term certificate programs that you all provide. That's a priority for the committee this year. It's a priority for the committee this session, and by the way, this will be, I think, a very interesting session for the committee. We will be working to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. And at the same time, we need to reauthorize the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA. So isn't it interesting when we're talking about better connecting education and the workforce, we're going to be talking about both of those at the same time. I have a bill that you may be interested in that I'd love for you to take a look at as well, which I call the USA Workforce Tax Credit Act, which would create new tax credits for companies who partner with community colleges or other organizations, career and technical organizations, apprenticeship programs, and help to ensure that they are training, they're working to train their workers and ensure that they're prepared for those jobs. So this would be a new tax credit that they could take advantage of. So again, community college can be, for many people, that opportunity. It can be what they want it to be. It can be a quick certificate program that prepares them for the job that they know they want, and that may be available at that time. It can be a great pathway for an associate degree that can lead to additional education. It can be done on their time frame and at the time of day often that they may find they can best do it. But why did I mention China and why did I mention the debt? I think 50 years from now, when we look back, what will we see has happened during our time here? And is it possible that America is in the midst of a long-term decline? We don't know. Nations cycle over time. They rise and they fall. We see, certainly with China, they're rising. And we see some evidence of potential decline in the United States. I think China is a huge threat to us, not only militarily, but also in economically and being the dominant force. So will we continue to be able to expand freedom, or will it be more an autocratic system of China? And then secondly, I think our other biggest threat is our national debt. We've gone through since World War II a huge economic upturn that has resulted in the lowest poverty rate that has ever been seen in human history. But nations where that's occurred, they get print money, have debt to the excess. Generally, they've failed or declined over a long period of time. And so it'll be up to us to determine what our future is. And it's a tenuous future, I think, at this point, with the threats that we have. Every nation that has successfully navigated those periods have prioritized education. Every nation that has been successful in continuing to provide the kind of opportunities that America has provided has ensured that not only did their people understand the importance of their economic system and their governmental system, but ensured that their workers had the knowledge needed to be able to innovate. They've had a level of entrepreneurism. That all comes through education. So the work that you're doing every day not only is important to ensure that each of your students can live their own American dream, but we hope that it also ensures that America will continue to be that beacon of hope for the world, and that this will be another American century. So thank you very much for having me.
Great job. We can take these from here. See? Grab my copy. All righty. What a terrific job. We have about 10 minutes for Q&A. So I believe there are some microphones that are in the auditorium here. If you would like to ask a question, please identify yourself, where you're from, maybe position, and what the question would be. And I'll go ahead and kick things off with a question. A few rounds of applause, and short-term Pell was certainly one of those. Interestingly, at Butler over the past week, we have someone who is interested in a donation in the construction trades area. And he's very interested in creating a pipeline for folks to get into that particular industry. And when that person and his advisors asked about Pell grants that would be available for such a program, of course, short-term Pell has not crossed the finish line yet. Many of us are already on the Hill or will be going to the Hill later today and tomorrow. Do you have any talking points or suggestions in these conversations for how we can get short-term Pell across the finish line?
Well, sure. So this is something that, Nick, we've been talking about for some time, and it's really critical, I think, that we get this done this session, and hopefully we can do that either as a standalone bill or maybe as part of the higher ed reauthorization. But I think I think what you're doing right now with all of you being here is perhaps the most important thing that we can do. Members of Congress need to understand why that's important, and telling show and tell still works. Relating to them sort of the kinds of stories that you just told me. Stories about the needs that exist for businesses and the opportunities that will provide for students. If members of Congress, you should be individually going to meet them in their offices and asking them specifically to support this bill and co-sponsor this bill. I know you've been doing that well. It takes work to get a bill passed, but this is a really important one that it's hard to argue against. And so hopefully we get it done this session. But your work in advocating for that will be critical to making that happen.
Great. All right. I'll fire away with we may have a question here. Thank you very much. If you'd let us know who you are, position, and then a question for the Congressman.
Congressman Smucker, thank you so much for an outstanding speech. I'm Cheryl Siegel from Grand Rapids Community College, Michigan. We rarely, as educators, or perhaps speaking for myself, think about education in a national context, in a political context. And I so appreciate you mentioning the threat of China. As both a substitute teacher, being in education, I meet China vicariously every day as our students' minds and hearts are co-opted by TikTok, by other Chinese influences in social media, and also by Confucius centers on campuses, which have now changed their name to hide their identity. Does Congress have a role in trying to manage the social media influences of China in education?
Yeah, and I'll say this about China as well. I think this is not about the Chinese people. This is about the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, who have continued to clamp down on the freedom of the Chinese people, and who has made it their goal to dominate and to overtake the United States as the premier world power. But yes, one of the first things we did when we took the majority in Congress this session, Republicans, I'm a Republican, is established a select committee on China to look at all aspects of our relationship with China and how we can ensure that we are coming from a position of strength and that we can find ways to work with China. They're still our biggest trading partner. And so there's a select committee. By the way, this was done on a bipartisan basis as well, will be bipartisan. And so they're looking at TikTok. There are some real concerns with the security around TikTok. And so that'll be one of the things, like how do we address that? China, with the balloon over the United States, that's a test. And I'm not sure that we quite met that test, allowing it to fly over our entire country. But those are the kind of things that will be looked at. So thank you.
Okay, I'll go over here to this gentleman.
Congressman Brandon Bryce, Cecil College, Vice President of Community Relations and College Engagement. Thank you again for your presentation. My question is, with all of the federal dollars that are coming into the four-year institutions, and now the HBCUs, which I'm a proud member of, where's the conversation of military or defense funding going towards the two-year programs? And the reason why I'm asking is because the reality is, unfortunately, most people who are going to the armed services aren't going to Yale or Columbia or Rutgers. They're going to end up, in most cases, at a community college. And so I just see almost where the funding for those things that require two-year training would be best suited for those people, because the reality is many of our Americans typically go to the military because they don't have the money to either go to college or don't necessarily have the desire to attend a four-year.
So are you suggesting a new stream of funding through the military for a two-year degree?
Yes,
okay.
a totally new focus.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Let me think. I'm going to think through that, and I'm not sure. You've sort of raised some questions in my mind about whether there is some funding that's funneling through DOD or the military budget to some of our schools. I mean, certainly they're providing a lot of their own training, which in some ways would be similar to colleges, but I'm going to look into that. So thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay, and we only have a few minutes. This gentleman over here.
Congressman Thomas Witt, Heartland Community College, Illinois. Thank you for your work on short-term Pell. And I guess this is kind of a half question, half statement, but as we're moving forward with the competency-based and skills-based education, which is really gaining steam, I would just ask that you, who are obviously passionate about this subject, would continue to educate your fellow committee members on the fact that we, in the near future, we might not be looking at clock hours at all, or the use of clock hours to measure student success is going to change. So it's going to require our leaders, our Congress people, to get in front of this and educate themselves on the nuts and bolts of competency-based. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, no, you're exactly right. And by the way, this is true in K through 12 as well. I was I was the chair of the Education Committee when I was in the State Senate. And back at that time, that would have been 6-7 years ago, we were already talking about how education is changing. Technology has changed it, and people are expecting information at the time they need it, and we should be evaluating students based on what they know and not necessarily seat time. By the way, I had some interesting things happening in schools in my district who were sort of experimenting with some ways to do that. It's a real shift. It's a paradigm shift, frankly, is what it is, and you know that. And so this is going to continue to happen. In fact, I would say that the pandemic really has accelerated some of those trends and what people's expectations are. And so certainly we know there are some innovative things being done. We would encourage that, and we're ready to work with you. If there's something that we can do at the federal level, certainly states are looking at this as well. But you're exactly right on. We've talked about this both at the state level and here, and we'll continue to work with you in any way we can as our education system continues to shift. Thank you.
Thank you.
The fear of a moderator is no questions. Now we don't have enough time for all of the questions. But this gentleman, you have 30 seconds, and then Congressman an answer in 30. I apologize. Congressman's on a tight schedule. Go ahead, sir.
Congressman, thank you very much. My name is Ram Bhatia. I am a trustee at Gateway Technical College in Wisconsin. I enjoyed to hear your initiative that your committee is going to take, and I truly enjoy that. The reason I'm concerned about is that one thing that you touched base about the employers can find people. As a long-time trustee, I am very passionate about the subject because we have been hearing for the last 5 years, maybe 5 to 10 years, skills gap. I don't want to be here 5 years from now and again hear about the skills gap. Obviously, the pandemic has made it worse, and over the years, the government, federal, state governments at all the levels, they have spent millions to close that gap at the industry level and at the community colleges. But that hasn't worked. It's getting worse. So I hope that your committees, when you address that issue, you look at the root cause of the problem. It's not only the spending the money at the community college and the industry, it's going after the able-bodied people who are sitting and collecting the money and they don't want to go there. So is there any initiative? If not, then I would hope that we focus on that issue because that is a big problem and it is getting worse.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We could talk about this for the next hour, but fully aware and focused on the issue. And I don't know if I did a very good job of tying back what I see in terms of the long-term fiscal trajectory. We have our ability to deal with that depends on strong economic growth going forward. It's a critical component. In fact, it's what has made America great. Is we've developed new technologies that have improved our productivity compared to other countries and have become the dominant world power in that way. If we can't find people to fill the jobs that we have available today, if people are unwilling to go to work, if people do not have the skills to take the ever-changing jobs, it will hinder that growth, which will ultimately affect the well-being of the American people and affect the country. And so in the context of our economy, it is not only do we want people to work because it gives them their own opportunity to advance and live the American dream, but it's important for the future of the country. Companies right now, larger companies that have the ability to locate throughout the world are choosing where to go based on workforce availability. And it's pretty hard to choose to come to the U.S. in some cases right now. And so factories are being built. We fixed the tax structure to incentivize job creation here rather than overseas and saw some improvement. But the number one issue for companies to decide where to locate is workforce availability. And so if that skills gap is critical, ensuring that we have the workforce available is critical for the long-term future of the country as well. So we have to elevate this to one of the most important things that we should be addressing. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. How about a great round of applause for the Congressman? What a terrific job. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.